One Nation party has always been outspoken against immigration, with often controversial, headline-grabbing statements. Its leader, Pauline Hanson, initially targeted Asians.
I believe we are in danger of being swamped by Asians.
Then Muslims. She's even called for a US-style travel ban against countries that are known sources of radicalism. But lately, the party with 2 Queensland Senate seats seems to have found an unlikely support base in some conservative migrants from Western Sydney. So I travelled there to find out why those migrants are voting for a party that wants to clamp down on the country's borders. Fairfield in Sydney's west sits in one of the most diverse electorates in Australia. Here, 1 in 2 voters are migrants. One of them is Vic Melly, who came to Australia from Malta as a toddler. And up until recently, he's always voted one way.
If you lived in the western suburbs and or you were a new Australian, Labor was your party of choice because they protected the worker.
Until...
Well, I can tell you now, when those idiots all went into some mass hysteria in Parliament House, our blood curled, okay? Especially when we had local MPs who knew we were opposed to that bullshit, voted for it.
Same-sex marriage was legalised in 2017 after almost 2/3 of Australians voted for it in a postal survey. Labor campaigned for the change, adding to concerns among some conservative migrants who were increasingly uneasy about the party's progressive policies.
The same-sex marriage referendum, vote, whatever it was, really scared many people. They were not expecting the world to change in quite that way. They weren't expecting their moral certainties to be challenged in exactly that sort of way. And I think we knew fairly quickly that they were very disappointed with their local Labor representatives.
And so Vic Melly turned to a minor party whose stance on more than just social issues aligned with his.
What Pauline has said is, if you come to Australia, be Aussie. I did.
So, just how many migrants are voting for One Nation? There hasn't been much research on this topic, so we used Census and polling data to examine the trends. In Vic Melly's electorate of McMahon, One Nation had a big impact, gaining more than 8% of the vote. Most of that was Labor's. And in nearby Macarthur, also quite multicultural, the party gained 9% of the vote. In neighbouring Cabramatta, local government councillor Di Lee says disgruntled voters are turning to One Nation in protest. She thinks the major parties need to rethink how they engage with diverse voters.
In southwest Sydney, the majority are non-English speaking, 50% are born overseas or her parents who are born overseas, and who really represent them.
Pauline Hanson says she does. Why do you think that you've been able to connect with migrants despite your rhetoric on migration?
Because I speak the truth. And I say what a lot of Australians haven't got the guts to come out and say.
Sociology professor Andrew Jakubowicz says it's unlikely many Asians or Muslims will ever vote for One Nation. But he says other ethnic and religious groups can be drawn to the party.
Bugger off, go back where you came from.
One Nation is a party, essentially, of the disappointed Conservatives. What they're looking for is some party that will articulate their sense of frustrated desire.
Anthony Green is the ABC's numbers man. He points out it's hard to tell from demographics whether the vote is coming from migrants or Australian-born residents, but says it's probably a bit of both.
If you think of One Nation entirely as a party about race and immigration, you'd wonder why the party would do so well in a seat like McMahon. but it's also a protest party.
And while One Nation only holds 2 Senate seats, he says the Pauline Hanson effect is still politically significant.
I think the concern for the Labor Party is that if they lose support to One Nation, which is what appeared to happen in a couple of Western Sydney seats, is those people might be on the way to voting for the Liberal Party instead. What you're seeing is a loosening of the ties.
Egyptian Australian Labor MP Peter Halil has heard the message from migrant communities loud and clear. He's now part of a Labor Party committee, figuring out how to win those traditional voters back.
I'm going to be very straightforward, which is unusual for a politician, but I have for many, many years said that we cannot take for granted multicultural communities. Yes, they've always been big supporters of the Labor Party, but that's not just something that happens automatically.
On the other side of the political divide, Concetta Fierravanti-Wells has her own theories on why migrants are moving to One Nation. She believes last election raised a series of issues important to Conservative migrants, and notes that in Western Sydney, 12 of the 17 electorates voted no to same-sex marriage.
Australia is a lot more conservative than I think political parties have realised, and that silent majority, particularly that silent majority composed of people of family and faith, increasingly I think will have a stronger voice.
Should the major parties be concerned by this?
I hope so. I intend to grow the party even more. I hope to gain more votes from them.